So we are talking about a contract as a tool for risk mitigation. Now, risk mitigation is very essential element of any business transaction. Now, you won't do any business transaction negligently, recklessly, or without having any parameters for risk-related aspects. But what are the important elements related to risk mitigation, or especially what kind of risks any business person would run into? That is very important to know about it. Now, the first risk is about the financial risks. Second risk is about the operational risks. Third risk is about the risk to the data, reputation. And fourth kind of risk is risk to the life, property, and environment. So, take any business transaction, these four risks will be there. Either they are overlapping with each other or they might be in isolation as well. So, for example, non payment is a financial risk, short payment, wrong payment, delayed payment. These are all very, very financial risk kind of. But there are certain operational risk also which may have certain impact on the financial risk. For example, there could be a risk related to short supply of material or a wrong supply of material, or there is no supply of material. Now, if there is no supply of raw material, you have to go to the market and buy that market from that market raw material which is at a very high cost. This is a financial risk as well. Now, this is a combination of the operational risk and financial risk also. I had identified that certain raw material will be costing certain X value, but because I do not have the necessary supply from the market, I have to go to the market and buy that same material from at 2X value. So now this is a financial risk. Why? Because it is going to hamper my entire costing of the product. It is going to affect my entire budgeting. It is going to affect the profitability, because my profitability depends on my cost and my sale value. My sale value I'm not going to change, but if my costs are getting escalated, it means it is going to hamper my profitability. So it has a huge financial impact. Now you can realize, so these kind of risks are going to impact financial aspects, operational aspects also. Now, for example, operational risk, people or manpower who are working on the project, they are declaring a strike, or there is a strike of logistics partner. Now it is not within your handle. You cannot do that, you cannot take care of all that stuff, because if somebody on the road is creating certain ruckus, or it is creating certain civil commotion, because of which the movement of your trucks is not happening, it's outside your control, and that's where it's an operational risk. But it has also an impact on the financial aspects as well, because if trucks are not going to move, or rather a truck is there on the road for next 4 days, 5 days, or 10 days, the truck transport company, they are going to charge you for all that money while they are on the road as well, although the material is not reaching your premises. So this is an operational risk. It has a combination of financial risk also. There could be certain operational, very peculiar operational risk. For example, if you want to use certain grade of aluminium, or certain grade of steel or copper, or any metal for that matter, for any manufacturing process. Now, if that grade of material is not available in the market, you have to go for at least higher the grade of the material, or the worst scenario, you have to go for a lower grade of the material. But that is going to impact the quality of the product. So this is a purely an operational risk, because it is going to hamper your production quality, your manufacturing quality, the entire quality of the product. And naturally, so if the quality of the product is substandard or below standard, then it is going to create certain problems at a later date, because it will have certain requirements for repairs and maintenance at a much later period. If you had a better quality, you would have never required that kind of repairs and maintenance, because the quality was of top grade. Now this is a problem, operational problem. The third problem is related to the data. So data is everywhere today. What people say is about data is oil. Now data is so critical. When you get a lot of data points, you can create certain assumptions out of this, you can create certain patterns out of it, you can predict certain future things out of that data, because data is so critical. But when the data is related to any specified people, person, it is related to certain characters or individuals, it is very centric to certain locality, so data will have multiple such kind of utilities. Now, when data is leaked or data is compromised, it is falling in wrong hands. It can be used by the competitors. It can be used by adversaries. It can be used by the people who do not want you to be successful. So that's where data is so important and critical. And confidential data, if it is leaked out, for example, if you have a secret recipe of manufacturing something called a chemical component, a chemical component, if used in certain particular margins or kind of millimeters, milliliters, or whatever, so whatever those compositions are very critical to manufacture that kind of component, if that important information is leaked out to your competitor will be in the market even before you go to market, and that's a huge business risk. And that's where data is very confidential. It needs to be maintained confidential, and that's where it runs into a risk of leakage. Similarly, the risk related to reputation. Now imagine a lot of business decisions happen on the basis of my reputation as such. So whenever I am in business, the business will consider what is the reputation of this business entity. Now if that business entity's reputation is compromised to certain extent because of certain information in the market, whether it is right or wrong or whatever, but then it will hamper the business opportunities in the future for sure. For example, if there is a drug manufacturing company, if there is a wrongful information in the newspaper or media about the material which they are using is contaminated, or it is procured from some certain illegal sources, or it is procured from certain sources which are not providing hygienic supply of raw material, would you dare to buy such kind of pharmaceutical product or drug? Or if it's a application, for example lotion, would you apply such kind of lotions if the contamination of the raw material is informed in the media? That's very difficult proposition to even think about it. Now if those kind of materials are there in the market, you will always think about the reputation of other ancillary products also. Now if my brand is getting impacted, it will also impact my ancillary brands, my sister brands, and my other co-brands which are working alongside me. So branding is very crucial, and from that standpoint the reputation related risk is very important. Now how do we protect on these kind of reputation related risks? Now, do I manufacture every component? For example, if I am automobile industry, do I manufacture each and every component of my car? The answer is no. I am purely an assembler. I am assembling multiple components together and fitting it together to create one car. But my vendors, my suppliers, my service providers, my consultants, and there is a huge chain of my logistics partners who are part of this whole process. But if one of the components, for example one of the suppliers or service providers, it has a bad image in the market, and when it leaked out to the market that that kind of supplier is providing material to me, it is indirectly impacting my image. And that's where I have to be very sure about what is the impact that my suppliers, my service providers, my channel partners, my logistics partner are having on my business. For example, if I would say and tell you that there is one particular consultant or supplier who is using child labor, would you be comfortable to buy such kind of material? You will not. Although you know that the material which they had supplied to me has been used and it's a very small component of that my whole proposition or whole product. But if the market says that somebody is using a child labor and they are supplying this material to big brand like me, then wouldn't you think that it is going to impact my image completely? The market or the perception is not going to think about what is the percentage of the overall usage in my component or my product, but they are just going to talk about there is a child labor related issue which has been ignored by a big brand like a multinational company. So that goes against the values of the organization, the core ethos of the organization, and it can question the overall reputation aspect also. So it is very essential that I don't protect my reputation, but I also insist on my vendors, channel partners, my suppliers, logistics partner, and the whole ecosystem to appreciate my branding and my goodwill and my reputation and adhere to certain terms and conditions and standard operating procedures and certain quality norms, so that overall when it is implemented it is not going to hamper my reputation, it is going to enhance my reputation at any point of time. Now the last risk is pertaining to the risk related to life, risk related to the damage of property, or risk related to environment. That there are three different components, but three are very critical components from the economy perspective. Now if there is a very important infrastructure project happening, and while working on the project there is a death of workers, or if some third party are getting damaged, or there is a life threatening situation for some people who are bystanders or vehicles who are passing around it, and that creates a huge risk to the overall contractual aspect. Now if because of certain unforeseen situation, for example if there is a work happening on the bridges and underneath the work certain components or slabs or certain parts of the construction material falls down and it hits a person who is walking underneath or passing by, and then it will impact the person's life, it can impact a disability, it can cause a disability, and that will overall impact the contractual obligations of the parties. Now if there is a property damage, third party property damage, for example if there is very heavy equipment which is operating on the premises, now accidentally the heavy equipment is malfunctioning and suddenly goes in different direction and rams into a different property, or it is impacting a vehicle adjacent to it, or it is impacting to a tall tree, or it is impacting to another structure, and which is causing a trouble with adjacent property. So these are the risks which are possible and imminent while dealing with heavy infrastructure related aspects. Now environment. Now when we are working on the waterfront, or we are working near to the jungles and safaris and the reservation areas, these kind of areas are environmentally sensitive. Now we have to appreciate and understand the sensitivity of these environmental aspects, but because of these activities happening around it, there could be accidental contamination of water body, or it could be accidental cutting of trees, or it could be while road widening certain trees which are in the same area where the big pillars are supposed to be laid down, you have to remove those trees subject to environmental clarifications, approvals, confirmations. So these are very critical aspects related to the risk to the environment. There could be risk to the environment because of affluents in the waters, or there could be excess of smoke. A construction industry, currently construction industry and multiple cities in India are being identified as very highly polluted cities because of the construction happening in those areas. No matter what kind of precautions they are going to take it up, but the pollution is a bigger area and it is causing threat to the environment. Now these are the different risks which are there in any business contract. For every business contract, whenever it is being drafted, you have to think about the peculiarity of that project, peculiarity of that situation, what is happening in that area, what is happening in the adjacent area, what is your ecosystem, what is your logistics change, who are suppliers, service providers. So all these multiple aspects are required to be considered before even determining what kind of risks are there. So you have to think about different risks and what kind of realm of risk you are entering into. Only when you point it out all these risks, you will be able to provide certain clauses in the agreement which will help you to mitigate the risks. Now again, I need to emphasize one aspect, that elimination of risks in entirety is impossible, but mitigation of risk is possible. Now this is where you have to focus on mitigation of risk using contract as a tool, and these are the elements that you can use in contract clauses in different fashion, whether it's a force majeure clause, it could be a limitation of liability clause, it could be indemnity clause, it could be IPR infringement related clause, or it could be data loss or confidentiality. These are different clauses which are possible to be incorporated in contract so that you are going to mitigate risk to a larger extent.